Toronto Sports Rush. Dan, Kyle, Pierre. Before we get into the Leafs, Pierre, I need some words. Put your psychology hat on.
Okay.
As we still try to wrap our heads around the Leafs, the Jays. Because I've got friends who can't even go on social media because they see breaking down everything that happened in that Game 7. How would you tell a player? How would you tell them to get past it?
We have unfinished business. We're going to take 2 to 3 weeks off or 2 to 3 months off, and then we're going to get back to work. And we're going to come back with a vengeance, and we're going to win. We have a good enough team to win, Dan. We're really proud of what we accomplished this year. We defied most of the odds to get to where we got to, and we're just starting to scratch the surface. There's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to be down about. We got an amazing product, and we're just going to continue to build on it.
Pierre, what's the closest you remember getting to victory without actually achieving it? Because, man, the Jays, you just don't get much closer than that.
I remember coaching in college, and we won some championships, and it was really good. But I remember one year we got to the NCAA tournament, and we won our first round matchup. We were playing on the road for our second round, and it was a 2-game total goals at the time. And when we lost the second game, and I think we lost in overtime, which cost us the event, or to go to the Frozen Four, I just remember getting on the bus. It was about a 9-hour bus ride back, and I was like, damn, my career might be over. I was a young coach. I thought that would be it, and I had a hard time dealing with it. But that was just the start of something really special. So I tried to get really positive with myself. But yeah, I remember once. That's a great question, by the way, Kyle. I remember once walking to the building in Minnesota for Game 6. I was in Pittsburgh at the time. We were playing in the Stanley Cup Final, and everybody was outside tailgating. Everybody was having a great time, and you could smell the burgers cooking and the hot dogs and people drinking beer. It's just a party atmosphere. And we beat them 8-0. And I remember walking from the dressing room to the bus in the old Bloomington Arena and saying to Scotty Bowman, I can never even imagine getting to the final and losing. It must be so painful. He goes, I did it 3 times in St. Louis, and it's unbelievably painful. I've never been that far in loss, but I've been close enough to know that it's painful.
The mental aspect for players, what I would sink into is, okay, season's over, and then you wake up and say, we gotta play all those games again and maybe get this far. We gotta go back to the bottom of the mountain and start the journey again?
It's a great question, too. And Dan, I will tell you this, and this is a great piece of advice from Sidney Crosby. I remember once Pittsburgh got knocked out early, and it would have been after 2009. It would have been after the 2009 Cup run and the 2010 Olympics. And I remember seeing Sid the start of the next season. I go, man, you look at another level. I said, it must have been hard to prepare. He goes, no, you know what I did? I went to Europe. I took 2 months off. I've never done that before. I relaxed. I chilled out. I went home to Cole Harbor. And you know what? You watch his performance that season. It was off the charts. I think sometimes guys, when they go through this, they need to take some rest. They need to get away. They need to divorce themselves from the game a little bit. They need some private time. I don't think it's a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing.
Okay, there's the fix. Every Jays fan just needs to go 2 months to Europe. Perfect.
It's simple as that.
That's why he's Dan O'Toole. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's also a part-time travel agent, so don't let him rope you into this this scheme of his. Okay, so Pierre, you just spoke about the privacy of players. The Toronto Maple Leafs so far this year have been afforded quite a bit of privacy because no one's been paying attention to their rather mediocre start. They've had some highlights, but it's been mostly meh, just kind of blah play so far. What is your assessment of this team now that the attention in Toronto will be once again focused on them?
They took the right step forward in the last 20 minutes of their game with Pittsburgh. There's no question about that. So they're going to have to take more of those steps forwards, Kyle, going, I've seen to the next game, which is tonight against Utah, a team that won 2-1 in overtime last night, obviously down in Buffalo. They're far from being a finished product, no pun intended. The good news is Stevie Lorentz is going to be back in the lineup. The real good news is Scott Laughton's going to be back in the lineup. So now they're going to start to slot better through the middle, and that's been something that I know I've talked to you about, Dan. I think I've spoken to you about it. When you go Matthews, Tavares, Roy, and then Lawton, you're starting to slot better through the middle. You can play more of a 4-line game. You're starting to find out steady wingers for those centermen. I think it's going to be better. Obviously, the one bad piece of news is not having Chris Tanev. Kyle, I got to tell you, and Dan, not having Tanev is a substantial loss. It's not about offense with him. It's about penalty killing. It's about matching up. It's about shot blocking. And more than anything, it's about taking guys out of roles that maybe they're not accustomed to. I'll use the other night as an example. Simon Benoit is playing on the right side when he should be playing on the left side, but they have no choice just because of injury. He makes a turnover in the offensive zone because he's up playing on his backhand, not his forehand. Puck comes the other way, Pittsburgh scores. He needs to be playing on the left side. They know that as an organization. Now, not having him, they're going to have to find ways out to fix some of that stuff.
Say someone hasn't watched much of the Leafs, someone watching or listening. Have the Leafs figured out that top line yet?
I think now with Willie they have. I think if they go Nyes, Nylander, and Matthews, I think it's a lot better. And then I think Johnny T gets a little bit more room to work. And then obviously Robertson's been a huge, I think, offensive force the last little while. They need McMahon. I know he scored the other night. They need Bobby to be more consistent offensively. But then I think they are starting to figure out that top line. The biggest question I have for you guys is the power play, and how proactive are they going to be long-term in terms of finding somebody that can really run the back end of that power play?
Pierre, you and I will be going live tonight doing a reaction show after this Mammoth game. But I can't help but think, had we done that on Monday, if we were making notes during the game, those first two periods would have said one thing, and then the last period would have changed the entire script. But how big of a concern is us? It was an incredibly poor start. They were outshot and outplayed horribly those first two periods.
Yep.
That seems to be kind of the theme here. They have one good period per game. How do they correct that?
I think the internal leadership has to kick it into gear. The coach is kicking butt all the time. The coach is saying, you guys got to come out ready to play. But this is where I think Austin Matthews, this is where I think Morgan Riley, this is where I think a guy like John Tavares, they have to step up and be pros and say, hey, look, anything less than 100%, even though it's early in the season, is not good enough. It's a great question. I've never really been part of a team that couldn't sustain a start. Usually they started on time. Didn't mean they finished perfectly, because a lot of times they didn't, but they started on time. That's such an important part of the league today. If you're not starting on time, you're going to have problems. I'll use Montreal as an example. Last night, they fall behind 3-0 in Philadelphia. They reeled the game in. Eventually they lose in a shootout. They get a point. If they start that game on time, they crush Philly. They don't just beat them, they crush them. But they don't start on time. They get manhandled, and then they're chasing the game. When you chase the game, you can't sustain your game plan. So what do you need coaches for? Coaches create the game plan. So the biggest thing is to make sure your team starts on time.
Players have a report card kept on them by coaches and management every game through segments of the season. What would the report card on Easton Cowan be?
Incomplete. He needs a fair opportunity to play. I think when he plays with vim, vigor, and vitality, which is really exciting. They need to get him with steady players, matchups, create the role for him. I think they're probably working on that right now, but I would have him rated as an incomplete with the potential to be very good.
Pierre, we've discussed this as well before. They're playing in one of the most difficult divisions. They're definitely playing in the most difficult division in hockey right now. How long can they sustain playing around 500 and still realistically, because EJ brought it up with you on McGuire Monday this week, is this team at risk of missing the playoffs this year?
Yeah, and I said, no, I don't believe they are. One of the big problems in the division is obviously Florida Panthers are struggling. They got pile driven last night in Anaheim. They didn't just get beat. They got smoked last night in Anaheim. And a lot of that's because of injuries, and a lot of that is because of too much hockey. Those guys have played a ton of hockey. You got to think 3 straight trips to the Stanley Cup final. You win twice, plus they had the Four Nations. They had more players at the Four Nations than any other team. And, they've had some injuries coming out of that, obviously. But Florida's a big problem. I don't think a lot of people really thought Detroit, after the way they started their first game with Montreal, would be where they are right now. A lot of people thought Buffalo would just go away and melt. They're not melting. They're actually putting points in the bank all the time, which is good. So I think Toronto's starting to see the rearview mirror and even the front of the car, and they're saying, okay, we're tired of these guys being on our back hub. You know, we want to get going. So I don't think they'll miss the playoffs, and I think management will be proactive in terms of identifying organizational strengths and weaknesses and addressing them.
Pierre, what the heck's going on in Calgary? Flames are garbage.
Yeah, but you know what? Dustin Wolf's not. He's really good. That goalie's good. I'm telling you, Dan, he's played fantastically well. They're going to have to jettison some players. They're going to have to do something with Nazem Kadri. They're going to have to do something with Rasmus Anderson. Michael Backlund signed a contract extension. He's not playing nearly at the level I think they were expecting him to. Jonathan Huberdeau started the season poorly, starting to play better now. But they're a team that's kind of in a rebuild. I don't know if they want to say that out there, but that's where they are.
And I just wanted to jump in since we're in Alberta. The other night, Game 7, the Oilers were playing the Jays game on the screen during the game. And Connor McDavid was not happy after the game. And I'm watching that. I'm saying, Connor McDavid is keeping a mental checklist and he's checking things off. He's like, okay, here's a strike against them. Do you see it the same way whenever something happens in Edmonton that is negative towards the team? He is keeping note of that.
I would say yes. And I watched almost all their games. Watched their game with Dallas last night. Watched their game with St. Louis the night before. They've got to fix one internal thing, and it's really important, Dan and Kyle, that they fix it. Their transition defense, when their better players are on the ice, doesn't exist, and they're getting lit up. It's a good thing that those guys get a lot of goals, because if they didn't, they would be minus players like you can't believe. They puck watch. They overcommit offensively, which you understand because they are limited offensively, especially without having Zach Hyman in the lineup. But they got work to do as a team. This is going to be an amazing coaching project for them in Edmonton this year. I really believe that because of the fact that defensively they're just not good enough, and there's still major question marks about their goaltending.
Pierre, I want to get a couple of quick thoughts from you on the upcoming Winter Olympics, because you have such a strong foothold in international hockey, including your trip to Ireland last week to speak to the IIHF. Where in the process right now are all these nations as far as assembling their teams and prepping for the Winter Olympics?
What an awesome question, Kyle. So I spent a lot of time with the people from Finland last week, a lot of time with the people from Sweden last week. They're getting close to being sure of their rosters. They've had some heavy-duty scouting going on. I'll give you another example. Canada last night had a major presence in Montreal at the Philadelphia Flyer Montreal Canadiens game. You know, probably watching Travis Konechny, probably watching Travis Sanheim, for sure watching Nick Suzuki. Even Michael Matheson, I think they're probably watching Michael as well. So a lot of these countries, including Canada and the United States, are getting real close in terms of naming their roster. Once I think you get to U.S. Thanksgiving, I would say most of the rosters will be picked.
What is the process for Canada's management? Are they going to see these guys in action? They just watching tape upon hours of tape?
No, they were yesterday. The Doug Armstrong major decision makers were at the game in Montreal. They were there live and in color. I don't think they're going to do a lot of it off tape. I think they're going to do a lot of it live and in color. You got to remember too, John Cooper's coaching Tampa, so his staff, obviously they're watching a lot of games too live and see some on tape, but I'd say the major decision makers are probably going out and watching games live, which Canada can't have a foible. You know, if you go back to 98, I'll use that as an example. Everybody loved the roster. They didn't like the result. Then you look at 02. Very few people liked the roster. Really, when you think about it, I was there, I was doing it, but they loved the result. You know, and then you go to 06 and everybody's like, this roster's amazing. And they hated the result. Then you go to 10 and you change the roster up. You bring in Drew Doughty, you bring in Ryan Getzlaf, you bring in Danny Heatley, you bring in all these young guys, and they love the result. By the way, just a little housekeeping note. I know that everybody loves to say that, you know, the World Series had this monster TV number and it's the largest ever. BS, not even close. The 2010 Olympics had the #1 rated television show in Canadian history. I worked on it with Chris Cuthbert. It was called the Canadian Men's Olympic Gold Medal Game. The golden goal was scored by Sidney Crosby off a pass from Jerome McGinley. Roberto Luongo was the goalie. The crowd in Vancouver was crazy. At that time, there were 33 million people that lived in Canada. 26 million watched that game. So as much as I respect the World Series and baseball, they had 10 million. So that's my case.
I yell that sometimes walking around the house. Iggy!
That's what it was. Iggy.
I remember.
And then
I had a party at my
and
house.
to have Cuthbert on that call, man.
Chris was phenomenal. The golden goal. It was so good. It was so, and you know what? At ice level, I can tell you, I've coached in Stanley Cup finals, like a lot of unbelievable opportunities to be at special events. I will never forget the noise, the decibel level of the noise at ice level was unbelievable. I've never experienced anything like it. And I coached Stanley Cup final in old Chicago Stadium in Chicago, which most people would say the Madhouse in Madison was the largest building in the history of organized professional indoor sports.
And outside was insane. I watched the game with some friends and my brother at a bar, and then I had to walk over and do the show after. People were out drinking in the streets, high-fiving cops. Cops were hugging people. It was what I think the summer of love must have been like.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it was awesome.
I remember seeing a few pictures from out in Vancouver that would confirm that theory. So
I can't wait. Thanks,
Yeah.
Pierre.
Oh, you guys are so much fun. Thanks for having me. Talk to you
see you
next
tonight,
week.
buddy.
Oh, we didn't do. Can we do the card real quick?
Of course. I've got
Okay.
nowhere to go.
This is 1 degree of Pierre McGuire, where I point to a card. He says his connection to the player. I'm going way up. J.C. Bergeron, goalie for the Habs.
No, I know who it was. Coached against him. Never knew him at all. So I lose.
No connection to J.C. Bergeron.
None, but I did coach against him. I watched him play and did coach games against him.
That's the first one.
I
Appreciate
know.
the honesty.
Thanks, Pierre.
Well, no, I
See you
wouldn't lie to
tonight.
you guys. Darn, without you guys, I don't know. I wouldn't
See you
get
tonight,
this.
Pierre.
I love this.
That's it. Yeah, I got one too.
Kyle, I'll
See you
talk
tonight.
to you tonight. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, see you tonight.
See you, buddy. Wow, that's the first time that's happened.
Yeah.
Pulling
I'm
up.
shocked. I don't know how to speak. Let's go back to the Jays, Dan. What do you think about Bieber opting back in to stay with the team?
Okay, so I think this is kind of predictable because was it CJ? I don't know where I heard it, but they're like he is going to use the next year as his launching pad to a $200 million contract. So he's like, hey, this is the place to do it. I don't have to go shopping around. It was on the table, and he just said, yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it feels to me like everybody sort of wins in this situation because he was good for the Jays. He wasn't like his exceptional old self, but he was kind of live rehabbing in front of all of us. The price is good for a pitcher that's, top 3 rotation guy, and the upside of him and knowing that he likes this group of guys and likes being in town. I really do think everyone wins here.
Yeah. They have a lot of decisions to make, Bo Bichette being the biggest. And I was looking at a panel of insiders, and they said to a person that Bo would be signing with the Jays. That was the consensus.
And that would be a good thing for all people involved. Bo Bichette's obviously a well-rounded baseball player. He's an exceptional talent at the plate. He's a clubhouse guy. He's turned himself into a bit of a leader, and he's shown that he can perform under pressure even while injured. And that's just the type of toughness that calls back to when his dad played. And it's just a different type of thing. And if this team is going to continue to make these playoff runs and try and go deep, that's the kind of guy they need. And to be honest, Vladdy needs the protection. He's going to always need it either in front of him or behind him in the lineup. And that's what you want your $500 million guy being accompanied by.
And the Jays as a franchise, this is unknown territory for them in the last 15 years, in which they are now a destination for players. Keegan Matheson described how they treat their players, the amenities, all all of that, he says, is some of the best in the league. And the fact that they just went on this run, that all the guys just praised how this was a team. They played on teams before, they've had fun on teams before, but they've never had an experience like this. So that is going to be a selling feature to a lot of free agents. And Bo knows that. He's lived it. The only thing that enters his brain, I'm sure, is the Leafs have it. Jays have the same. We're too much in focus. I kind of want to live my own life. I want to leave my house and not get recognized. There is that aspect. Once you've been in it, you're like, okay, I experienced that. I was a Toronto Maple Leaf. I was a Toronto Blue Jay. Then you go somewhere else and you're like, I can live a normal life. So that enters their brains for sure.
That's a big city problem, without a doubt. A big market. It's a big media market. Lots of attention on them. But they played most of this season without that attention. Then all of a sudden, they got real hot. Then they made the playoffs. Then they rolled through the playoffs. Then they went to Game 7 of the World Series with the lead in the bottom of the 9th inning and 1 out. There's going to be a lot of attention on them for the full slate next year, not just half of the season. That's something you have to get used to. But as you say, they provide all of the creature comforts of modern sports to their families of these players, to the players themselves. It makes a big difference. It has to. They're playing in a newly renovated stadium that's very thoroughly renovated.
And another renovation. They kept showing it during the playoffs. There's a new lounge.
Phase 3 coming this offseason. And let's not forget, this is one of the best hitters ballparks in baseball too. So if you're an offensively minded player, you're always playing in perfect weather because it's a dome. If you're looking for big numbers historically, you maybe don't want to go and play in Seattle, right? Where unless you're the big dumper himself, you're not hitting 60 bombs out there. He's maybe the only guy capable of doing that. Him, Judge, someone like that. So it's a good place to play.
Speaking of renovations, how far are we from them building a bar that hangs from the top of the dome? Like they're like, we need to build another one.
Like Skywalk style at the CN Tower, where you just kind of lean back over the edge with your beer, or forward over the edge with your beer.
Yeah, people would pay for that.
Just bring in the drone hot dogs and I'm happy. I don't really care about all the creature comforts of
thanks for bringing that up, Kyle. They've got the money now. Just warm up the dogs 10 more degrees on Looney hot dog night. Just warm them up 10 degrees more.
Maybe it's a matter of not just warming them up, but providing them with a better foil cover. There's probably so many people working on this problem in the off season.
But that's the thing. These things slip through the cracks. They're like, give them their hot dogs. It doesn't matter how they get them. But now they might actually say, let's take care of this problem.
Dan, I feel as though I just saw something on the screen happen. I think the producers have given up on us, but we have to go back one segment and talk about the Toronto Blue Jays being robbed of gold gloves. That's despicable.
Okay.
Despicable. Right? Vladdy, Clement, Alejandro Kirk, all probably should have won their respective gold gloves. Certainly Clement, certainly Kirk. Vladdy, probably, definitely. It's pure robbery. What are we seeing here? Has this team not been exposed enough? Because it's not a media award. What is happening here? It's the managers and coaches and then a whole bunch of sabermetrics nerds voting on this. And they somehow robbed Kirk, who was clearly the best defensive catcher in the entire major league, and other Blue Jays as well.
I'm pulling up the list. I haven't even seen it yet. So, none. That's not good.
I watched there's a really good baseball YouTube channel called Made the Cut that broke down the numbers and how it was astonishing that Kirk didn't win his award. I don't know if they did one for Clement. I don't imagine there'd be one for Vladdy. But just right across the board, with very few exceptions, Alejandro Kirk was clearly the best defensive catcher in baseball. He called great games. He's the best strike framing catcher, although that's of limited use in the future, it seems, as they move closer to the robots. Stopped tons of pass balls. We saw it all playoff long. The Seattle series alone, the pass balls may have been the difference, right? They had so many go past them. The Seattle catcher, Big Dumper himself, and Kirk was blocking everything. And that led to a few Blue Jays runs that made the difference.
Wait, Ty France won a gold glove?
Over Vladdy.
He only played first base like twice, I think, for the Jays.
I don't have a lot of positive thoughts about this
Stephen
voting process.
Kwan. Okay. I had a buddy mention they'd like to see Stephen Kwan get acquired by the Jays. He wins it for left field. This is breaking news to me. Marcus Semien, former Jay, wins it at second base. Okay, so one Blue Jay, and he wasn't even a Blue Jay for the majority of the award in Ty France. That's a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, it was not. I don't know what to make of the oversight. I'm sure I'll be seeing more reaction videos to that.
That's the last in my mind. Considering I'm still trying to comprehend Game 7 because as each day passes, I see a new breakdown. I see a new description of no, you guys got it all wrong. This is what should have happened. I'm like, oh, just when I was over it. So
I don't watch them.
Yeah, I know. As I said to Pierre and you, I had a buddy who deleted all social media because he can't watch it anymore. He's like, I'll never get over this.
I wouldn't go that far personally, but I can just not log into it and it'll pass
until you find that rabbit hole and you go down it.
Oh, by the way, I'm moving to Dunedin.
Okay. Well, we'll see you Friday.
See you Friday.